Hello and welcome in to the 1905 podcast, where Chelsea have come out on a wonderful 3-2 victory over Fulham at Craven Cottage on Monday Night Football. It was a beautiful game to watch, so entertaining. I have to say, Fulham and Chelsea gave everything and it was pulsating. And let's hope these new rules are there to stay, with the goalkeepers obviously having to get rid of the ball within 8 seconds, with the throw-in takers having to throw the ball within about 6 seconds. And the one that I really enjoyed the most was the substitutes being ordered off. I think it's around 5 or 6 seconds again. They have to be off the field. So you notice that Lavia and Rogers walked off behind the goal and down to the sideline when they were substituted. And I think that just made a huge difference to the speed of the game, the feel of the game. It just felt like both teams were going at it all night long. And I've got to say, it really made for a great game of football. So let's get that out of the way at the beginning. But 31 seconds for the Alonso era to make its comeback. Wow, dear. It was just brilliant. You know, blink and you miss it time. A lovely slip ball through from Cole Palmer. And there was Pedro, one touch, beautiful first touch. The on-rushing Leno had no chance, and just Pedro, that Brazilian magic, just dinked it over the goalkeeper. And how on earth Joao Pedro did not go to the World Cup. Carlo Ancelotti has got a lot of questions to answer there, because that was just an absolutely disgraceful decision. And equally, you could argue that Tommy Tuchel not taking Cole Palmer, I think both of them have shown up last night and just basically said, here's 2 fingers to both of you, because we're fantastic players and you should have taken us. But what a brilliant start to the game. And I didn't know what to do, really. I was in shock. I was like, wow, 30 seconds in and we've scored a goal already. So amazing. But I mean, Joao Pedro's performance on the evening was just outstanding. From literally from the minute one to the end, he ran his socks off. He holds the ball up so well. He brings everybody into play. He's unselfish with his running. He's unselfish with his passing. And I just literally, I'm in awe of him. You know, to have a player of this quality playing for Chelsea as our number 9, we are just so blessed. And he's really, really grown into this position now. I said at the start of last season, there were a couple of times where I thought his game went down a little bit. I didn't think he was particularly focused, maybe. But again, that could have been to do with the stance of the club and how we were playing. But already in pre-season and at the back end of last season, you know, you notice a guy that's fully focused and ready to go for Chelsea, and that is just such a blessing. You'll notice that I won't speak about certain players on my notes today, because I want to give Chris the opportunity to speak on certain people as well. So Chris will come in and speak about Cole Palmer and 1 or 2 other subjects as well. So don't think we've forgotten about them, because we really haven't. That fast start obviously was just amazing, but then obviously comes the defensive lapses. And I think the most obvious and notable things that's been discussed today, being discussed on every WhatsApp group, I'm sure, that is out there amongst Chelsea supporters, is the goalkeeper position once again. And, you know, Rob Sanchez is just such a poor goalkeeper. I know that there is just no getting away from it. He does certain things pretty well. He claimed a couple of deep crosses, I thought, quite well last night. But other than that, you know, he really does make a pig's ear of just about everything that comes at him. And Chris and I were messaging briefly during the game, and we know what type of game he's going to have almost from minute 1. And Chris was straight away on me and just said, "Yep, it's going to be one of those games today." You know, when he basically scuffs the ball, when the ball came back to him in the first half on his left foot, and he could have passed it quicker or cleared it quicker, he waited. The ball went out for a goal kick, and then he scuffed the ball out to his teammate anyway. You just think, oh dear, he's kicked the turf. It's going to be one of those days. So yeah, obviously the Fulham equaliser. I don't think Morgan Rogers actually defensively helps things here. You know, his positioning wasn't great, but when the shot comes in, my word, he's got to save it. I mean, it's at his near post. It goes right through him. It's all on the deck. It's hit with power, but my goodness me, it's just something you save as a goalkeeper. And unfortunately, Chelsea are going to be forever in this hole, in this position of constantly having to come from behind, or we're going to go up in games and get pegged back if these things aren't ironed out. And I think the goalkeeper position, Chris and I have been saying it for a while. We've had 1 or 2 podcasts basically stating the fact already this season that the goalkeeper is a massive, massive problem for us. And we've got to get a handle on it really, really fast, because I think if we do go into the season with Rob Sanchez, I just don't see a world in which we can win the league. I don't. And you can say, well, oh, win the league. That's big talk. It is big talk. I'm not getting carried away. I'm really not. But I think if you've got any chance of doing anything this season, the goalkeeper position needs addressing. And fingers crossed, you've got the likes of Xabi Alonso that has played with some wonderful goalkeepers, Casillas, Neuer, Pepe Reina, to name just three. And you look at what Gary Neville and Carragher were saying on Sky Sports last night about, or Neville in particular, talking about Peter Schmeichel coming in and then them not having a goalkeeper for many, many years, and before they had Edwin van der Sar, and how much it affected them defensively. And it's not so much that the back four doesn't play well or does play well. It's just having a nervousness that when you pass the ball back to your goalkeeper, is he going to clear it, or is he going to pass it to the right person? Is he going to scuff one out for a throw-in? Is he going to put you under pressure unnecessarily? When he says he's going to come for a cross, is he actually going to come, or is he going to clatter into one of your defenders and make a pig's ear of it? I think that is the thing, that a back four just wants to have someone behind them, sound and solid, that they know they can trust. And at the moment, the way Chelsea are going, even already after one game, the goalkeeper is a huge problem. And I'm sorry, it needs addressing. And I don't think you need to spend an awful lot of money to go and get someone that you really want. If you don't think Penders is ready, then I think you need to go and find someone that is. But my sort of feeling is that Penders will play against Luton on Thursday night. And if he plays well, he could maybe keep the jersey. That's a big call, but that would be my kind of hope and desires for the rest of the season if we don't go and buy one. I think at the back, let's go at the back, because I think there was a few uncertain moments. I think that Levi Colwill didn't have his best night. I think, from minute, 4 or 5, when the ball got passed back to him on his left foot and he miscontrolled it, and I want to say it was Josh King or someone was going around the around the side of him, and he had no choice but to bring him down, and he got a yellow card inside the first 5 or 10 minutes. You thought, oh dear, okay, that's a lapse, that's fine. But I just thought all evening he didn't look particularly comfortable in that role. And Chris mentioned to me, I was at the Liverpool game when Pochettino had his first match for Chelsea when we played them at home, and Levi Colwill on that day looked like a fish out of water. He was basically playing like left back in a back four that day, and it felt a bit like that yesterday. He wasn't playing left back, but he was being dragged over to the left-hand side quite a lot, and he didn't look particularly comfortable in not so much a foot race, because he's very quick and he got back and made a lot of challenges. There were just one or two things that made me feel a little bit uneasy about him. He missed a few headers. There was a few times where the ball was just getting played all around him and he didn't quite have his best evening. But as I said to Chris, maybe first night jitters. They're still getting used to this back three. It's something that's going to take a little bit of time. And he's not someone I'm particularly concerned about. It's just that I think overall on the evening he could have done a lot better. As for his partner Lacroix, or one of his partners, I thought he had an outstanding game. There was an occasion in the second half where he gets squared up, and by that I mean when, again, I think it was King again, that runs past him on the inside, and instead of being side on and being in a position to make a block, the moment you get squared on with somebody, you lose all your movement. And this is what happened last night. He got squared up, King knocks it round him, and he has a shot and he dragged it wide. But on another day, someone of maybe better quality, or maybe King himself, just bends that into the far corner, and Chelsea are back to 3-2 or 3-3. I think it's something he needs to work on, because his all-round game, his pace was incredible. Getting back to win balls. What was noticeable, there was a ball in the second half that got played deep in behind us, and he just flew onto it, absolutely flew onto it, and mopped it all up, passed it back to Sanchez, and Chelsea kept possession again. And that was so encouraging, because we haven't had that for a long time really in the back four. But I just felt as though his performance overall was wonderful, and obviously his assist for the second goal was incredible. I love the way that he was just found himself in that right hand position, and he's got the ability and the confidence in some ways just to say, yeah, I'll have it, I'll have that. Took his player on, pulled the ball back, and we gave Morgan Rogers his debut goal. And yeah, what a difference between Tosin and Disasi and Badia Shield to have Colwill, Achampong and Lacroix last night. And obviously don't forget Reece James can go back into there, and we've got Fofana still to come back, who I've openly said I have my doubts about Fofana at times, because I do think he can be a little bit erratic. But I think maybe in the back three he might be a lot better, and I think that'll be good to see when he comes back into the side. But my word, I think the difference between a back three of that last night to what we used to in the last few seasons was magic. And I think that we have got some frailties there. We definitely have got some things we need to work on. But I think it's also good to play competitive first team Premier League games for you to see where your mistakes are. And this will all be noted down. This will all be taken into consideration. And I fully expect Chelsea to clean up a lot of that stuff come not just Brighton, but all the games going into the season. You know, this is the first time they've really played together in a proper game. So we can't be too overly critical. But yes, it wasn't perfect at the back. But what I would say was I still felt a lot more comfortable. And I think if Sanchez or another goalkeeper can get themselves together, I think that we will be in a position where we can attack properly and have the ability to be like, do you know what? You know, we can go forward in numbers and rely on 3 or 4 players at the back to do their job. And I think that's what we need to do going forward. Missing players, obviously, no Caicedo. I think, you know, he in himself was a huge blow to the midfield. But what I would say is that we dealt with it. I think we were getting overrun slightly without him in there. It's not that we didn't cope. I thought we coped well enough. It's just I would like to have seen, you know, with him coming back into the side, £100 million player, you know, you cannot be too downhearted with the way that the team played, of course, but he's just going to add so much steel and determination. And I feel as though with the Enzo Fernandez starting as sub debacle and coming on, and Fernandez did okay when he came on. He was absolutely fine. His first few touches were booed, obviously, as you can imagine. But I felt as though that if we can get those two playing together, maybe, if he stays, but if it looks like he's going to go, which my personal opinion is I think Enzo will leave, we need to find Caicedo that perfect partner. Now, Lavia is wonderful. If he can get himself fit and play the full 90 every single week, I wouldn't be too bothered, but I don't think he can. Asugo looks like he's about to leave on loan, and it does leave us a little bit light in there. So again, we'll come on to some transfers and things we think might happen towards the end of this transfer window later in the pod, but I think with a Caicedo and somebody else in there to make a huge difference in Chelsea, I think it's going to be such an impressive and formidable midfield. So the moment, you know, Caicedo is ready to come back, I'll be over the moon. Obviously, Palestra not playing was a weird one. We didn't know that he had a knock until the teams were announced. He wasn't even on the bench. So Gusto came in and sort of did okay, but, you know, he was Malo Gusto, and he's not a favourite of mine particularly. But again, if he stays, I'll get behind him. But again, the likelihood is that I think he might leave personally as well before the window shuts. But Palestra was a real miss because he's been so good in pre-season, up and down that wing, left and right. So yeah, I was sort of gutted that he didn't play because he was someone I was really looking forward to seeing play. I think I'll just quickly sort of finish on the set piece coach. I think there was a few set pieces in the first half and corners where we were whipping balls in and moving the Fulham defence around, and I really liked what I saw. And last season I criticised the set piece coach that we had in Bruno Cueva because I thought he was bloody awful. What I will say about this guy, so far from what I've seen in one game, he's very passionate, he's up and about, he's on the touchline, he's very involved when there are set pieces like free kicks and corners around, long throws, etc. So it's good to see that he's very involved. He clearly gets annoyed when things don't come off. But I have to say, 1 or 2 corners and free kicks that we did put in, I thought were wonderful. We should have scored. Lavia, the one that was obvious, where Lavia shoots close range at Leno and he blocked it, but we should have scored from that. And it was a brilliant set piece. And if that had gone in, it would have been a real kind of icing on the cherry on the cake. But we will come back. Chris is going to come back and do a bit on, for example, Cole Palmer and 1 or 2 other players. I want to finish my first note by just saying I thought Chelsea played wonderful. In attack, the creativity was brilliant. You know, the 3-pronged attack in Pedro, Palmer and Rodgers was just purring all night long. I thought that defensively we covered so much ground. It was great to see players come on and put a shift in. It was great to see that everybody seems to be pulling together. I don't want to go back to the days where Chelsea are having to, or all the fans are having to call for this sort of stuff. It should be a given that every single time you cross that white line, that everyone is giving everything for the club. And I felt as though last night that was the case for the first time in many a year. From right back, right wing back, all the way up to centre forward, everybody ran their hearts out, and I loved that about the side. That was the most encouraging sign for me. And as we said before, it's early days. Let's not get too carried away. But I think in Alonso, we've got someone very special. And I'm hoping, as the games go on, and I've seen a lot of teams play this weekend, that Chelsea could, and they look a threat, and they could push towards some kind of title challenge this season. It's only one game in, but very, very impressed so far. Well done, Chelsea.
Well, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? What a start for Xabi Alonso and his Chelsea era. I woke up this morning just in a good mood, just really happy, and I just really enjoyed last night. There was periods of the game where I just couldn't stop smiling, particularly watching Cole Palmer back at his best, and I'll talk more about him later in this note. Let's start with, I guess, the build-up to the game. I don't know about everyone else, but it was probably the most I've looked forward to a Chelsea game in I can't remember how long. You're always excited, aren't you, for the first game of the season? It's a clean slate, etc. Doubly so when obviously you've got a brand new manager. But the feel good around Xabi Alonso has felt so strong over the summer. There's been a lot of positives in the transfer window. And you were just looking at it all day, just thinking, I really hope they don't let us down and we don't do effectively what Spurs and Man United both did and kind of crash out in the first game of the season. Everyone I was speaking to as a Chelsea fan was really positive, was just thinking, okay, let's start well. And the most important thing was that we came away from that first game of the season with a win. And I think Alonso will be so happy that that's happened. I felt, we've had it tough, I think, as Chelsea fans. Really under this ownership has been pretty dire, bar moments in Maresca's first season where there were some positives. It's been pretty consistently bad for 3 or 4 years. And I think we're just so wanting some positivity to cling on to. And I really hope Chelsea can get a good start to the season, because I think it will do so much for the fans. And you can sort of see, shout out to the away fans who were absolutely fantastic, as they often are, Chelsea away fans, to be fair. But you could see the support for the team, the support for Alonso, the love already for Morgan Rodgers, that the fans are ready to really get behind this team and manager again. And we just need some momentum, I think, to really carry us through. Contrast the scenes at the end of the game there to like Brighton away at the end of last season. Do you remember when Cucurella and Enzo Fernandez were just stood there kind of staring into the away fans, and Liam Rosino, I think, was that his last game, was just staring like a man on the edge, basically. Contrast that to what we saw last night. It's like two different clubs, frankly. So yeah, really, really hoped that we'd come out and win last night. And obviously 31 seconds into the game, wow. This is the fastest goal ever scored by a team at the start of the season, unsurprisingly. And Joao Pedro took that long to hopefully dispel the number 9 curse. And we finally have a striker who can deliver consistently for us again. So much to talk about. Let's, I guess, start with the lineup. Joe has alluded to a few points there. Obviously, it was quite different to most of us expected. I think most had thought that we'd see something similar to Real Sociedad, with obviously Palestra and Neto as the wing-backs. That didn't transpire, but what was probably unsurprising was the shape. So it does look like that back three that we thought he might bring over from Leverkusen is the way that Chelsea are going to line up, which again, I think ultimately in the long term will really suit us. Clearly some things to iron out in that formation. I think Colwill, as Joe said, is going to have to really step up to how to play that left centre-back role, because there is more reliance on pace and probably having to handle the wingers at time. But Chelsea, I'm sure, will work those creases out. But I think the shape generally will really suit us. And what I thought was notable about the team selection was that all 11 of the starters had Premier League experience. And it was almost like, obviously Palestra was injured, so maybe he would have come in, but outside of that, it was almost like Alonso had seen what had happened to Spurs and Man United and others, and just said, look, first game of the season, those who hadn't seen the Premier League before, just watch it from the sides, just get an understanding of what these kind of away days are like. And I actually thought, whether it's deliberate or not, it was a smart move. And obviously there was plenty of experience actually in the lineup on the day. And yeah, the thing I want to, I guess, start talking about immediately is that front three. I mean, we had a lot of defenders on the pitch. I think we had 6 recognised defenders on the pitch, with the wing-backs and obviously Reece James playing in midfield as well. So you were looking at it thinking, wow, all of the real pressure is on that front three to deliver. So much has been said about Palmer and Rodgers and Joao Pedro, how good they could be. Wow. Particularly in that first half. the number of times the three of them were combining, it looked like they'd played together for years. It reminded me a bit of almost the Liverpool three when they were absolutely flying with Firmino, Salah, and Sane, where you've just got almost this, they're going to score goals. They're just going to score and make goals for each other. And it was just so fun to watch. And they are going to be so fun to watch, I think, Chelsea this season with those three playing. I loved the fact that there's so much to love about it. I'm going to talk about each of them individually a little bit, but maybe first I'll just say as a three, I love the fact that there were so many combinations between them in terms of always looking for each other. Like there was a good interview with Morgan Rogers and Palmer after, and actually Rogers was saying this is just the start. You know, we've been trying to work out in training how we like to play with each other. He was saying he hadn't played with Joao Pedro before, but they've got a good understanding already. And you could just got this feeling of like they're really enjoying playing football with each other. We know Rogers and Palmer are obviously best friends, and sometimes you can just see it on the pitch, can't you? Players who love playing with each other, and I really felt that there was a joy about the way they were playing, little flicks, turn around the corner. Obviously, it was mainly Palmer on the right, Rogers on the left, but there was a point in the first half where you saw they'd switched over. Palmer had moved over to the left. So I like that, in fact, there's that dynamism between them. And yeah, I mean, to a man, they all had moments and particularly performances in Cole Palmer that just, wow, just took your breath away. I think I've got to start with Cole. There was points I just couldn't stop smiling watching him back to his best. It was a throwback to his first 18 months at the club, and it was almost a reminder of that's what he used to be doing week in, week out, and is the reason why, you know, there were points in this podcast right back in that era when I was saying like he could get up to Eden Hazard levels, who I always have said is the greatest player to have played for Chelsea. I always say my favourite player is Frank Lampard. I think the greatest player I've seen at Chelsea is Eden Hazard. Cole Palmer, when he's in that kind of mood, has that aura about him where you think, oh yeah, he could be the best player in the league, as Hazard was for multiple seasons at Chelsea. We'd said last season, didn't we, that obviously he's had injury issues. He talked about that. He wasn't moving right. I think he lost a little bit of confidence with that as well, potentially. So many other things going on. He's talked about things, I think, as well as his body, maybe his mind wasn't right as well. Yesterday was back to the Palmer that I'd started to worry we may not see again. He just looked so free in his movement, the speed, the little touches, the dribbles, going left and right, getting his shots away again, and shots with meaning as well, if that makes sense. You know, there were times when he's snatching at things in the last year or so, but you saw him trying to place and curl things in. There was two that he whipped past the post that on another day could curl in. The goalkeeper didn't move. He just was brilliant, wasn't he? So silky. And if you have a Cole Palmer playing at the top of his game, there's not much he can't do. There's not much he can't do as a club. He can be in that level of top players in the world when he's that good. And I really honestly think that, because I've seen it. We've all seen it in Chelsea. We've seen how good he can be. And yeah, I just hope this is the start. I'd been a little bit worried, to be transparent, in pre-season that we hadn't seen this yet. And Joe said it. He said, don't worry about pre-season. Let's see, like, first game of the season when it really matters. Wow. You know, and actually within 30 seconds, he gets the ball first time, bang, through to Joao Pedro, perfect pass. Joao Pedro's touch, by the way, as well as the finish, the touch to take it out of his feet is unreal. The finish is incredible, and you're 1-0 up, and what a start for Chelsea. And to be honest, in a way, the scoreline, I think, flattered Fulham a little bit. On another day with Chelsea score 4 or 5, and with a different goalkeeper, maybe don't concede at all. So it was, yeah, at times, Palmer, just unbelievable. And just great to see him looking like he's enjoying his football again. There was a funny moment where was it Bassi, the Fulham player, dives and gets booked from the referee, and you can see Palmer in the background laughing and smiling. You're like, actually, you know, that's Palmer at his best. He's not taking things too seriously, which is great to see. Rodgers on the other side, obviously, is his best mate. What I love about Rodgers, and you didn't get to see a huge amount yesterday, but two things that stand out about him. One is physicality, his power, his size, gives you a completely different dynamic to Palmer, which I think is really exciting. And number two, his willingness and want to get shots away. Again, only 2 or 3, but it was a couple that got blocked. But just this feeling like, oh yeah, a real threat from the edge of the box and outside the box. Fantastic. And I think testament to him, he's got to score, but you never had any doubt he would score. When the ball was pulled back from Lacroix, you just thought, oh, it's Rodgers, he's going to score. And what a start for him, by the way. Only a pre-season game as well, but 2 games, 2 goals. And just that momentum for him as well, that yeah, he's here. That price tag doesn't look like it's going to bother him at all. And, how many times have we seen, even, last season with Wirtz and Isak, how that price tag can be an issue for a player. We've had enough at Chelsea, let's face it, over the years. To see Rodgers start like that is very, very exciting. And Joao Pedro, wow. Joe said there, how much he grew, I think, as last season went on. He's just signed, obviously, a new extension, new contract at Chelsea. He put the club up to another 8 years, I think, if that runs through. Interest in Barcelona in the summer. Great to put that to bed. I think on his day, he is arguably the second best striker in the Premier League behind Haaland. I think he's that good. And when he's in the mood like he was yesterday, he's got everything. He really has everything. He really is a special player. We had doubts sort of early on last season, I think, of whether he was a real number 9. And it's almost like, and I think actually gives some credit to Rosini here, it's probably the one thing that Rosini has left as a positive is whatever he did with Joao Pedro, because he made him a proper striker, I think, gave him the confidence to be a number 9, and he was flying under him. But he's got everything. He's got his interplay. He can come deep. He can play. He can turn. He can run. All of that stuff. His finishing, we're now seeing, is on point. He was unlucky, obviously, not to get a second goal with the offside at the end. But I also love that he's got that other side to his game, which you need in the Premier League, where he can play as a proper target man. And again, throwback to last season. If you remember Arsenal away, I think it was in the League Cup, where we played really defensive. It was all up to Joao Pedro. He bullied the Arsenal centre-backs, who, let's face it, are the best in the league at times. He had Saliba, on strings at times. He was absolutely brilliant. And I think the 3 of them together, I generally think is frightening. A lot of people are now saying today they might be the best front 3 in the league. Let's wait and see. They've got a lot to deliver, but I tell you what, it was a great start. Really positive for all 3 of them. And again, loop where I started, they look like they enjoy playing together, which I think is a big thing when you're forward. So really, really exciting. I want to talk a little bit about what Jay mentioned there about work rate, but not just work rate. I think looking like we had some grown-ups. One thing that was really notable, and again, you don't want to, I think, focus too much on these things, because they look good when you win, and when you lose, they're meaningless, right? But in the huddle before the game, you saw Reece James doing his thing, of course, as captain, doing his talking. But I thought was notable, and bear in mind it's his first start in a competitive game at the club, was Lacroix was the second to come in and do talking. It was really clear that everyone was listening to Lacroix as well. And wow, have we missed that kind of leader at the back? So you've not only got Reece, but to have someone like Lacroix helping him out as well, I think is so important. And we just have this feel about us as a squad that there's a bit more fight and willingness. There's a social clip going around today which doesn't look good for Neto, I have to say, where I noticed it in the game in the second half. Neto loses the ball. I think it's actually Esteval sells Neto a bit short on the right-hand side, and Neto sort of puts his hands up and doesn't sprint back. And Reece James basically does a brilliant job covering him, and Chelsea come out with the ball, and Reece is screaming at Neto, having a go at him, telling him to get back, and Neto shushes with his finger at Reece James. And number one, terrible attitude, never want to see that. Quite surprised actually Neto doing that, but I think it's really, really poor. But brilliant attitude from Reece James, brilliant that he called him out, and I hope something's said about that actually behind the scenes to Neto, to never do that kind of thing. But what I thought was notable was everyone who came on, just the general attitude and the fight to grind out that win, which you need to do at the Premier League. You have to do it a lot of times, actually, to win games, particularly away from home, was really, really positive. And just, you know, some of these new guys, I've been watching all the stuff off behind the scenes, as you do at this stage of the season, but I saw some really good sort of clips with the way that I think Morgan Rogers speaks off camera. He comes across as a really mature, focused guy. He's not a kid. You know, he's only 23, but he comes across as someone with much more experience. Obviously, someone like Danny Welbeck, you expect that as well. But again, he just seems like a grown-up. We know Henderson is there as well. There is just this feel that just around Chelsea, it feels different, culturally different. And I wonder whether like Joe, I don't love Gusto. For that reason, as much as I think he's an okay player, he's a passable player, and in the wing-back system, I think he might be fine. But I wonder if people like Gusto and maybe Neto and Enzo Fernandez just don't fit this culture reset that Chelsea are trying to make. And whether for that reason alone, it might be worth moving them on. Sometimes you've been in any company or, for a number of years, you get a bit tired of it and you're hearing different things and you just want it's time for you to leave, right? And I wonder for them, it's just time for them to leave. So we'll see what happens in the end of the transfer window. We'll talk a bit more about that on this pod. But I felt the positives from the work rate, but also just seeing the grown-upness and the fight to win was massive. Great for Josh Achimpong, by the way. I've got to mention briefly. Great for him to start. I thought he did pretty well. Rumours of him being linked to Everton. I know there's a few Everton fans desperate to try and sign him. I think what you saw actually yesterday is we have to keep him because, one or two injuries and actually we're pretty short. So I really hope that Achimpong stays now, based on the way that the squad has been built. And I hope he gets meaningful minutes. You'd expect him to start on Thursday as well against Luton in the League Cup. And it was really good. I think I saw a stat, it was only the fourth full 90 minutes that he's played in the Premier League since he came into the Chelsea squad a couple of years ago. So just shows you how little meaningful game time he's had. And I hope that, again, he continues to get meaningful minutes because I think you saw enough in him to see, he really suits, again, that right centre-back role as well. And then the final thing for me, I think, on the game is over to Alonso and a really interesting pickup on the way that we played. Again, these stats have come out a bit today. Chelsea only had 38% possession. So they let Fulham have more of the ball. This has been a theme of the first weekend of the Premier League, that a lot of the teams that have won have been the teams with less of the ball. In Alonso's case, I believe it's a deliberate point of focusing on being out of possession very, very good. And one of the reasons for that is exactly what you see with the front three, is that when you're then giving them the ball, they're not coming up against 8 defenders of the low block. They've got space to play in. And it may result in a bit of chaos ball at times, a little bit like we saw under Pochettino. And I don't think Alonso will want that too much. There'll be times, I think, yesterday where he was concerned. But I always think it really suits players like Rodgers and Palmer. If you can give them the ability to have space to play in behind, and rather than them coming up against 6 defenders, they're up against 3 or 4, that makes all the difference. So I thought that was quite notable from Alonso. And what we will talk about next is what happens in the rest of the transfer window. But I think a close eye will be on players that suit that style of football. Over to you, Joe.
Hello and welcome in and welcome back to the 1905 podcast, where the smile's not left my face, and I can hear in Chris's voice and see in his face that he is absolutely buzzing as well. I think the analysis there on Cole Palmer and Rodgers and one or two other players just says it all. And I think from my perspective, just the fact that I've woken up this morning and I've watched the highlights about 3 times already suggests that I'm a pretty happy bunny at the moment. So I can't deny there's a lot of memes going around. There's lots of fun things going around, and I've watched a lot of them. But I have to say, I did have to come off my phone and go and play some golf and get it out. So my son and I have just played some golf, which was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. Quick 9 holes and we're back. And we'll be going to our own football training in about 2 or 3 hours' time. I think we're just sort of going to do a quicker note on second time around here, just to sort of discuss a few of the transfers, ins and outs, mainly outs, I think, from Chelsea's perspective, and where it might leave us. I think personally, if we start with a goalkeeper, what do I think is going to happen? I honestly think that Chelsea are going to sit on their hands on this one. We haven't really been linked to anybody. Now, it could surprise us. Alonso could surprise us, and suddenly we're linked with somebody that we weren't expecting. As of right now, there's not a lot of names being thrown about, and I just think that we might just hang on to him for the rest of the season, and just he will keep the seat warm for Penders. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that Penders can kind of usurp him starting on Thursday night. I hope he has a really good, comfortable, confident match, and that might just make Alonso think, should we give him a go against Brighton and see what happens? My gut feel on the goalkeeper is we probably stay with him, although I would love us to go and get a Martinez or someone along those lines. I think he is available, but all the deals that Chelsea and Villa have done over the years and again this season, it does make me think that the financial kind of guardians are probably looking at that and maybe going, we better not do too many, particularly as the next player I'm going to mention in Nicolas Jackson is being heavily linked to Aston Villa again. Atletico Madrid or another team that are interested in him. It sounds as though he's probably going to leave. I think he's the one player, I have to say, out of all of them, I think I would love to see stay and given a go, purely because if something happens to Joao Pedro, we're going to be, maybe in a bit of trouble. So I would like to see him stay, although we've got Danny Welbeck, I know that. But I think that Jackson is a bit of a wild card, and I think that if it was my own money in my team, I would like to see him stay. But I think Aston Villa or Atletico, he will be bound for around that £65 million mark maybe, and hopefully if he does go, it is a sell this time and it's not an obligation or an option rather, I should say. It sounds as though Liam Delap is off to Nottingham Forest. That sounds closer by the day. Chelsea want £50 million. I don't think they're going to get that. It could be a loan, I think, with an obligation to buy, not an option. It sounds more likely. Whether Chelsea will get that £50 million they're asking for, I don't know. I hope that we do get a fee this summer for him and it's done and dusted. But if it's an obligation and it's around that £40-50 million mark, then I think it's absolutely fantastic business and we have to let Delap go because he's not a Chelsea player. As for, who's the other one I was thinking of? Enzo Fernandez, of course. Sorry, forgive me. Enzo Fernandez sounds like he is also, in my humble opinion, is going to leave. I think he's more out the door than in the door. As you saw last night, the footage of him, he stood with the players for a few moments. He didn't really clap. He didn't really do a lot. He smiled at one point. He obviously saw somebody in the crowd and he gave him a little wave. But he then basically drifted quickly down the tunnel, along with, I think, Pedro Neto as well. Malo Gusto, I think. Don't quote me on Gusto, but I think he was the other one too. 3 were quickly down the tunnel. So I think all of those players, in all honesty, Neto, Gusto and Enzo could all be sold. I think if Enzo does go, I think we have to replace him. Obviously, Adam Wharton and Adam Scott are the ones that are linked with us hugely, and they've been linked with us all summer, pretty much. I think my personal opinion would be to go someone who has got masses of experience, and that would be Fabian Ruiz, with Caicedo coming back into the midfield. If we can get a left-footed central midfield player playing alongside Caicedo, I think that balance would be unbelievable. And I know, like Chris and I had this conversation yesterday about him, would he leave PSG for Chelsea? I think at 30, having won the Champions League twice, I think you possibly could twist his arm with enough wages or whatever. I feel like you could sell him the project. If he's not going to get as many minutes this season as perhaps he thinks he will, I don't know. I don't know what his situation is at Paris Saint-Germain. But if I was Chelsea, instead of paying £90+ million for Wharton, I'd be looking at maybe a really experienced player. And earlier fees in the summer were around that £50-60 million mark. And I think if you could go and get a Ruiz, you've still got 4 good seasons in him, if not maybe more than that. And that would be my personal choice. Someone with that instinct that will take us to the next level. I'm not saying Adam Wharton and Adam Scott couldn't do that. I just feel as though that Ruiz has that knowledge. He's been there, seen it done. He's got the T-shirt. He knows what it takes to win the European Cup and the French League and the World Cup now. So I think that he would be my choice because I think he's probably about the most gettable centre midfield player there is with experience out there. The Neto one seems to be rumbling on. I think it's Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia are looking at him. Again, the fees have been around the 70, 80, 90 million pound mark that Chelsea want for Neto, which is stupid money, let's be fair. But looking at Neto yesterday when he came on as a substitute and did the shift that he did and how hard he worked, I actually was quite impressed with him. The most I've been impressed with him since probably the Club World Cup. He had a game, I think it was against Benfica in the Club World Cup under Maresca, where he was brilliant. He was up and down the field. He scored a brilliant goal on the day. I think he may have assisted too, and he was so good. I want to see that Neto back. Last night, that's what I saw. I agree with Chris. The thing about shushing Reece James when he didn't run back for a play, I thought was bang out of order, and that does need nipping in the bud sooner rather than later. But I think of all the players, particularly in that wing-back role, to have him come on or start odd games here and there for the season, I think he'd be a really good asset for Chelsea. But again, there is a market for him, and Chelsea may decide to sell. I just don't see Esteval doing that kind of role. Esteval's going to be coming on in the Rodgers-Palmer area, and I think that Neto is the one slightly below in that Gusto/Palestra role. He can come on and do a job probably on either side. So I think I'd probably like to see him stay if we're going to continue with this formation. But again, someone that's been heavily linked away. Malo Gusto is another one that has been linked away from the club, and less so of late. There was a lot of talk in the transfer window. Chelsea wanting £70 million for him, which is obviously utter nonsense. Personally, I wouldn't give you 30 for him. But I think if he wants away, I was looking in yesterday and just checking his facials, just checking how he was he running back? And he did all right yesterday, Gusto. In fairness to him, he had an okay game. He wasn't bad. He definitely ran around. He put a shift in. I think once the window closes and these players know that they're staying, I think that's when you'll see maybe a change in their mood and their mentality. At the moment, I think one or two of them aren't too sure what's going on, and there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But I think Malo Gusto is someone for me that I would, again, if it was my own money, I probably would take the money for him and move on, because I just think his attitude is not quite right. We've said this before about one or two players. The one I will say, who I was thinking about this on the car, I've just been playing golf, and was Fofana. And when Tommy Tuchel was at Chelsea, we played back three pretty much all the time. And I actually felt as though Fofana's best games in the Chelsea shirt have been in a back three. He famously got injured, I believe, against Real Madrid in that second leg semi-final, or quarter-final, it might have been actually saying that, in the Bernabeu. And up until then, he was wonderful. And I think that Fofana, if he comes back into the side, like Chris said about Acheampong, staying in the team and getting meaningful minutes, I think that you're going to need all five of them players, really. Reece James, Acheampong, Fofana, Colwill and Lacroix. So I think he would be someone I would like to hang on to. I wouldn't be getting rid of Fofana too soon. But yeah, I think overall, what I would say is if Enzo Fernandez does leave, and I think he'd be a fool to leave to go to Man City personally, not because they're not a great club, they are a great club, they've got obviously brilliant players and all the rest of it. I just don't trust that manager. Unless he loves him, unless something behind the scenes, he's given, Maresca's given Enzo love and support and all the rest of it, then maybe there's something we don't know about. But I just think the type of football he plays and the way that Man City played at the weekend and how poor they can be at times under Maresca, which we've seen already in two occasions. They were very lucky against Bournemouth for the weekend. I just think I would be staying with Chelsea in that project. And you've come this far with it. Why give up now? You've played all these seasons and you've now got a manager and a team that looks capable of actually competing. Don't give up. Keep going, Enzo, and stay with us. But if he does leave, I want Chelsea to replace him, like I said earlier on, with a proper player. Let's not go in the season with just Lavia and Asugu sounds like he's going to Strasbourg on loan. But there's certainly a lot more outgoings than incomings for Chelsea at this stage of the season. I think there could be a shot goalkeeper, but I don't bank on it. I think that if Enzo goes, we should replace him. And I think the players I've mentioned all could leave for a hefty fee. That could be Jackson, Gusto, Neto. Yeah, any of those players could leave and bring in some money for the club. But I think at this stage of the season, if we could add two more, it would be a goalkeeper and a central midfield player if Enzo leaves. But I think I'll leave it there this week. A fantastic result again, like we said yesterday. Keep the train running, and hopefully against Luton and then Brighton at the weekend, we can get a win in the cup and get through there. And we saw what Brighton were like at the weekend. They were outstanding against Villa, although I think Villa were terrible and they've lost an awful lot of players. I still think Brighton are a tough nut to crack, and they've always given us problems over the years, home or away. So it will never be an easy game. But fingers crossed, we can start the season with 3 fantastic victories.
I'll keep it pretty short to wrap us up today, I think. So one thing that I have been enjoying this afternoon, looking at all the numbers and highlights like Joe of the game yesterday, but there was a stat that really jumped out to me. And it's something we talked about in the pod a lot last season, for those who were listening in, which was running distances. So I think it came out in about March last year that Chelsea had been outrun in every single match all season. And basically, we weren't working hard enough. Came out like yesterday that Chelsea it was originally the first most running distance covered. I think we then slipped down to second when they rerun the numbers, but the second most distance run of any team. Now, absolutely that'll be down to the type of game state, style of football, of course, is a big thing here, formation, etc. But it never sat right with me last year, seeing those numbers, particularly the second half of the season with some of the performances that we saw from Chelsea, where it just didn't feel like the players cared enough. And I think that alone was a positive. And you almost felt it watching the game, didn't you, that the guys were really putting the work in. So that was really, really good to see. And the other thing that came out, if you haven't seen the little clips of Reece James, I didn't notice it actually as much during the game, but him really, really rallying the players, vocalising. I mentioned the Neto thing earlier. You see there's a great clip when Pep Chavarria comes on for his debut, him really kind of riling him up and getting him going. And I thought, I just wonder who's been working with Reece on this. Is it Xabi Alonso? Is it Henderson? Is it Welbeck? People like that. But we're seeing it was a different version of Reece that we've seen before as captain. And I thought that was really, really positive. On transfers, to be honest, I agree with Joe, so I'm not going to add a huge amount. I would absolutely love Chelsea to look at the market on goalkeepers in the last 8 days. And if they don't do that, then we've got to give Penders a go. We have to learn. We have to bite the bullet and find out if this guy's ready. So yeah, let's see what happens on Thursday and go from there. And absolutely, I think Enzo Fernandez will go as well at this point. It sounds like the City move's going to happen. I think it's, as Joe said, a really strange time to go to City. It just feels to me like a club. We've seen it so many times. We saw it with Alex Ferguson leaving Man United, Wenger and Arsenal, Chelsea with Mourinho, let's face it. We might see it with, a bit slower with Klopp and Liverpool, but it's so hard for an era. Football is cyclical for Man City to carry on with the domination they have. And I just wonder if you wouldn't be smarter, as Joe said, just to hang on for a year and, wait to see if Real Madrid come in next summer or something like that. But I think he will go to City, and Chelsea absolutely have to replace him. I'd be happy with any of the options that we've really been linked to. I mean, Fabian Ruiz would be an absolute dream if we could get him. But Wharton or Scott, I really like both of them, to be honest. So either of them I'd be really, really happy with, and I think would really fit this kind of sort of mentality monster style of football that we're saying that Alonso really likes. So yeah, let's wait and see. The other one I saw being chucked around today was Chelsea getting another cheeky bid in for Xhaka and going in with a bigger number. Can't see it happening now, but you can see, looking at the game yesterday, where Xhaka would fit. I think alongside Caicedo in that Alonso ball formation, but Chelsea will probably go a little bit younger. Let's talk very briefly about the Luton game. Obviously, it's Thursday night. It's a must-win. What I thought would be fun was to kind of predict the lineup, give you a thought on what I think it might be. I'll put this on the screen as well for those who are watching. But I've had a little go. I think I've averaged out 8 or 9 changes. I think it's 9 changes in the lineups. I think we can expect a big change. Obviously, we then play on Sunday against Brighton. So I've got Mike Penders in goal. Big game for him. His first in front of the bridge. I think he will get a big reception following that game on Monday. I think he would anyway, but I think he'll get a really good reception from the Chelsea faithful and a really good chance for him to stake a claim. We don't have a huge number of options at centre-back, which is interesting when you actually look at the numbers. And the base that you want to rest people like Reece and Lacroix probably. So I've kept Colwill in and put him in the middle of the 3 with Hato on the left of him, and have kept in Joshua Chimpong on the right. I think it will keep the wing-back formation, and I think we might see Pep Chavarria play on the left, who, by the way, I think could become a bit of a cult favourite at Chelsea. I've just got a feeling about him. Watching his style of football and his kind of passion, I think he might be a very likeable player. So I've got him on the left. We've got Giovanni Quenda on the right. So we saw him obviously on the wing yesterday, but we did see him a lot in this role in pre-season. And him and Esteval as a link-up on the right-hand side was very exciting at times in pre-season. So I wonder if we might see that. And you can see there I've got Esteval ahead of him. Centre midfield, again, is tricky with the options that we have in terms of injuries at the moment. But I've put in Barco for a debut. He's getting a lot of stick just on the sideline from the away fans yesterday. I think he will, for him coming on and celebrating when Argentina obviously scored against England. But I think he'll get a debut. And I've put in Asugo, who we think will leave the club. But I just wonder whether he might get one last run out with it kind of needs must in terms of numbers. I think we'll see a first start for Danny Welbeck up front, and Jamie Gittins on his resurgence, getting his kind of come into the Morgan Rogers role. So that's my predicted lineup. There might be a couple in there that don't play out. It'd be interesting to see where if Asuko's even still at the club. But let's hope that Chelsea can do the business. And I'll finish with a final thought, as it's the first game at Stamford Bridge in the season. It's a pet hate of mine, and I did a tweet about this recently, which is that I've been into Chelsea for over 30 years. For the most part of that, Chelsea have played the Liquidator before every game. All of my friends and family know it because it's my ringtone on my phone, so it always gets a few wry looks. But the Liquidator is an absolute Chelsea classic, and against Spurs back in the Battle of the Bridge in 2016, there was added into the mix, "We Hate Tottenham," and it was amazing. Like, at the time, it was an amazing atmosphere that night, really special. It was the night that Chelsea stopped Spurs winning the league, of course, and I remember getting actual goosebumps because the noise and the hate for Tottenham, to be fair, on the night was amazing, and it was really good. It added to the song. When you play against Spurs, it's a really great addition. However, slowly from that point forward, the "We Hate Tottenham" part has been included and incorporated in every single game we play. And I feel passionately that when you go and watch Chelsea, we should be supporting our team, not focusing on a rival who are not even there. We shouldn't even be mentioning Tottenham on days that we're not playing them. And certainly not in our intro song when the players come out to warm up and everything like that. So I did a tweet on it. The tweet did really well. Loads of reposts, loads of people getting behind it. It's been a long time now. It's been 10 years that this has been happening. I hope and pray that eventually this will stop. Someone made the suggestion that Chelsea fans could sing "We've Won It All" instead of "We Hate Tottenham" in that part, which I think is great. I think people are almost wired to need to sing something in that part now, which is partly why I think it happens, to be honest. People are just used to saying "We Hate Tottenham." But to finish the pod, I wanted to play a version of The Liquidator sung by the Chelsea fans in 2013 in Amsterdam after Chelsea had won the Europa League. And as you can hear, it's just gold. It doesn't need the Tottenham part. It's magic as it is. We'll see you next time, and remember, every little thing's going to be all right.